Welcome, one and all, to a retrospective of the Slay the Spire Mastery Challenge. This was the challenge that we embarked upon in the year of 2023 here on the channel, and it was a really fun time. So with this presentation, I'm going to be looking back on some numbers we gathered from the experience that was the Mastery Challenge, as well as talking about some subjective lessons that I feel like I learned, and answering some questions from the live chat here about just pretty much anything Spire related or Mastery Challenge related. Quick overview of the Mastery Challenge in case you managed to miss it. The idea for this came from Monster Train, but I adapted it for the game Slay the Spire. The challenge being use all of the different cards in the game to win. So across several hundred different runs, I mastered all 352 different cards that are in this game by winning, and I required that I had to have 2 copies of the card in the deck. So winning an Ascension 20 heart run with 2 or more copies of a particular card. And we did this for all 352 cards in the game, which you can see here on this really delightful artwork here that's actually in order. So from top left to bottom right are all 352 card arts in Slay the Spire in the order we mastered them, which is heckin' cool. So we can see that Echo Form and Claw and Seek were the first cards mastered, and there's Clumsy right in the bottom. Very cool. Very cool. So a delightful sort of full page of Spire arts. Awesome graphic there. Oh, right. Yeah. So wait. So here's the full art without my face blocking. You can see all of them there. Masterfully done. So what numbers did we gather during the Mastery Challenge here? We've got a PowerPoint style presentation with a bunch of cool graphs in it. Let's dive right in and talk about some stuff. So first of all, how long did it actually take to master all of the cards? Here we have a breakdown of the number of cards split across which character they belong to and how many were left over time. And actually, I really like how this comes out, because this nice sort of smooth downward curve here is sort of like an exponential decay almost. And it looks like you could probably match a best fit line to that pretty well overall, such that we were losing about half of the remaining cards every 2 months. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. You can visibly see on this that as we got further and further into the challenge, it became harder and harder to master successive cards. And if we look at the same graph here by rarity, splitting them up amongst the different categories rather than by the character, we can see that the common cards disappeared entirely by May. We got all of the common cards mastered, whereas the rares and uncommons were a lot trickier to nail down. You can barely see the specials and curses on this because there's so few of them to begin with, but they were present until, of course, the very end. Pretty cool graph. Now, the curvature of each one is a little bit exaggerated since they're stacked, but just you can very clearly see the total number of cards follows a pretty predictable decay over time, which is cool. So special cards in Slay the Spire are the Ascender's Bane, the Curse of the Bell, and the Event Colorless cards. So Ritual Dagger, Bites, Apparition, stuff like that. Jax. Necronomicurse, I believe, is a special card, according to this. Looking at the total number of runs I took each month, we can see that I kept a pretty even pace throughout the challenge, but then even though we mastered fewer cards towards the end of the challenge, I was doing more total runs of Slay the Spire, and that's when I started to abandon runs, was right at the very end. Not sure what we did in February. It looks like I abandoned 1 or 2 runs for whatever reason. But as I got later into the challenge, I decided to start abandoning runs in order to get the opportunity to play through more Act 1s. And that was very noticeable in October, the hunt for Red Clumsy. Yeah, we'll be talking about Relic Mastery. That's definitely coming up. So also kind of conveying how increasingly difficult it was to get masteries is how many failures we had between successful masteries. Here's a plot chart of that. So on the vertical axis, how many runs it took to get a mastery. Let's see, can I capture? That has got capture cursor on it. Okay. And then on the horizontal axis is the amount of, as we went further into the challenge. So you can see the points get higher up on the vertical axis the further we get, with Clumsy being the way up there at the very end. Poor Clumsy, what is wrong with you? Why did it take so hecking long to get Clumsy? Yeah, it took almost 30 runs that did not master a card between Violence and Clumsy. So yeah, this is the number of runs between 2 masteries. Right at the beginning, it was pretty much just 1 every time. What if we look just at the basic cards, though? Somebody's asking, what about, did it really take that long to master Strike on Defect? Well, here's a timeline of how long it took to master all the basic cards. We got the really common ones. All the basic defends were done within a month. Watcher Strike was done very quickly. Ironclad Strike was done very quickly. We did Silent Strike mid-February, but wait, where's Defect Strike here? Well, it's way out here. It took until May to get Defect Strike. So yes, it did in fact take that long. But how many cards did we master on each successful run? So this also shows a sort of, again, very consistent curve of decline here. At the very beginning, each successful run was getting multiple cards, easy peasy, where we averaged more than 4 in January, more than 3 in February, but by the end of the challenge, each successful run, so this is counting runs that won, by the very end, each successful run was only getting a tiny fraction of a card on average. We had a lot of wins that didn't master any cards. And when we did get wins, it was only mastering 1 or maybe 2 cards. Excellent question. Timing by chat. What was the run with the most masteries and how many? I've got a graph for you. So, how many runs mastered different numbers of cards? We actually had two runs that mastered 9 cards at the same time. Those both occurred in the first month of the challenge. We had 2 runs get 8, 1 run that got 7, 6 that mastered 6, 8 that mastered 5, and then I'm really impressed by the other multiples. 15 runs got 4 masteries, 23 runs got 3 masteries, 31 runs got 2 masteries, and there were 63 winning runs that got no masteries. So 0 was actually the most common number for mastered cards in one run over the course of the whole challenge. So what were those actual masteries? We can view them by month. Again, the decline kind of followed. In January, we had a silent run master Acrobatics, Backflip, Defend, Deflect, Discovery, Endless Agony, Footwork, Leg Sweep, and Tactician all at the same time. In February, we did Accuracy, Alchemize, Backflip, Blade Dance, Cloak and Dagger, Doppelganger, Poison Stab, and Terror, also all in one silent run. In March, the best was 5 with Darkness, Genetic Algorithm, Recursion, Self-Repair, and Skim. And then in the later months, it was only 4 or then 2 in June, Forethought and Thunderstrike. September and October only saw 1 with Hello World. And of course, the Clumsy being the only card we did during the Mastery Challenge of October. It was the last one. I think Hello World being this late into the challenge was a little bit of an outlier. I think we had some decent opportunities for Hello World leading up to it, but I just didn't take them, or they didn't work out. Did any of these masteries involve getting Pandora's Box? We'll be looking at sources of mastery, I think, soon also. I'm pretty sure that's in here. But let's look at our win rate over time real quick here. So here's our win rates across the different months of the challenge. Greens are wins, with the dark green being a mastery win and a light green being a non-mastery win. At the very beginning, we got pretty much entirely wins that resulted in masteries, and we were at about a 50% overall win rate. I had a really good May. I'm not sure what happened in May. We just did really well. And then as I get later into the challenge, you start to see more and more lost runs, partially because, again, we started to abandon runs, shown in dark red here, with regular losses being in light red. We had a lower total number of runs in May, and I think that does have something to do with it. Fatigue is real too, right? As you'd expect that if I play fewer runs for a given time frame, that we would see a higher percentage of victory. But overall, though, the win rate across the whole challenge was pretty close to 50% overall, which I'm very impressed by, because we had a lot of runs that were taking unoptimal cards in order to try to mastery those cards. And we can look at the per character win rate here. This one's plotted in 90-day intervals. So we can see that everyone started pretty close to each other, around 50%. And then as we went on, we got more wins with Ironclad and Watcher. I think that's as we started to have to choose cards specifically for mastery less around the middle of the challenge. And then towards the very end, of course, we nosedived our win rate, particularly on Ironclad and Watcher, because those were the two characters that we're hunting for, Clumsy. How many hours total for the Mastery Challenge? That's actually a good question. I don't think we put a number on that, but probably around 1,000, 1,500, I think is my guess. Lots of streaming. That's probably close to how much time we streamed this year. So, where did we actually get our card masteries from? We've got a couple ways that are breaking this down. So, most of our masteries came from combat rewards. We got some of them from shops, some from events, and some from relics, with relics, I think, by and large, being Dolly's Mirror. Dolly's Mirror, we'll see, shows up in the stats quite a bit, actually. It was definitely a major component of the Mastery Challenge because I required that duplicate nature for the cards. It makes sense that the relic that duplicates a card was so key here. Yeah, Nya was not the source of any of our curses, at least not for winning mastered runs. Although it really depends on how you categorize it, right? Our clumsies came from cursed keys, so I guess that falls under relic here. Relic was the source of the clumsy, although Niao gave us the relic that gave us the curse. Let's look at a breakdown specifically of the events here. So specific events gave different masteries. Sensory Stone was, of course, responsible for so many of our colorless card masteries. That shouldn't be a surprise. You get to pick 3 colorless cards at once, made it easy to pick up duplicates, and many of our rare colorless cards were picked in this way. The Duplicator event looks like it got us 8 cards. Didn't find the Duplicator that much. It was really more Dolly's Mirror. Library got us a few. Of course, you would only see event character cards there, not colorless or curse. And then, not sure what event other actually entails here. It looks like we got lots of curses in event others, so that has to mean like stuff, the Mausoleum and the Warped Tongs and things like that. Treasure chests don't give curses. The cursed key gives curses, so that'll be from a relic, and I think we have relic sources broken down here. Yes. So we can see how many cards we got from each different relic, with Dolly's Mirror getting credit for 25 masteries, Pandora's Box getting credit for 16, Astrolabe getting credit for, looks like 8, and the Cursed Key got us 4. Pretty cool. Calling Bell got us 1. I wonder what that one was. How did Calling Bell give us a card mastery? Yes, the Curse of the Bell, of course, comes from the Calling Bell, so that had to give us one curse. All right, what else do we have to look at here? Oh yeah, so our most and least picked cards. A question I got asked before our presentation here was, what is your favorite card? And I kind of have an empirical answer to that for each of the different rarities across each of the different characters. This table was a little hard to get legible, so I do apologize if this looks like a visual mess, but I tried to clean it up pretty well. I think, at least of the commons, you don't see too much that's unsurprising here. Our most picked card across the 4 characters was Shrug It Off for Clad, Backflip for Silent, Hologram for Defect, and Cut Through Fate for Watcher. And you'll notice there's a theme here. 3 of these say block and draw a card, and one of them says deal damage and draw a card. And I think the common theme is that all of these are common cards that draw other cards. Card draw is pretty good. So you see a clear predilection towards card draw here. Other cards that we take a lot include essentially anything that's card manipulation or good block or energy gain. So True Grit, Pummel Strike, Headbutt on Ironclad, lots of acrobatics and piercing wails on Silent. Blade Dance is a major damage source. Lots of Cool Headeds and Turbos on Defect. Lots of Prostrates and Third Eyes on Watcher. Our least picked cards, Wild Strike for Ironclad, that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I'm surprised I had to take 5 of them though. Slice on Silent, I have fallen a little bit on Slice. Barrage on Defect. Maybe a bit more conditional than Defect's other commons. And Protect on Watcher. I feel like Watcher just has better block options, so I very rarely take a Protect, with some of the runner-ups being stuff like Pressure Points, Havoc, Quick Slash, Stack. These are cards I don't take very often. What about the uncommon cards, though? We've got a graph of these for each uncommon, common, and rare. Our uncommon cards, again, shouldn't be too many surprises here. Dark Embrace is my favorite Ironclad card. Surprise. With the second place, of course, being Feel No Pain. Then Second Wind and Disarm, which coincidentally go well with the other two. Whereas our least picked uncommon on Ironclad was Hemokinesis. I just don't take that self-damage very often. Which we took even less than Rampage and Metallicize and Sever Soul. Calc Gamble, Well-Laid Plans, Footwork, and Terror on Silent. That's probably not a surprise to anybody. With our least picked card being Distraction, also not too surprising. Defrag being number 1 on Defect, with Skim, Glacier, Equilibrium as the runners-up. All the premium block and card draw and retain is great stuff. Didn't take many auto shields, although that's partially because it's a card that's really bad in 2s. On Watcher, Talk to the Hand was our most common, uncommon card. Also, probably not really a surprise. It's one of the most takeable and spammable cards on the character, with Wallop, Rushdown, and Meditate as the runners-up. Also, no surprise there. My least favorite empirically Watcher card was Windmill Strike of the uncommons, with not too many concludes or signature moves either. All of those are attacks that have a serious downside to them, so it's not, well, maybe not Windmill Strike downside so much, but it's slow to get going, and that can make it really undesirable. Of the colorless cards, we took a lot of Dark Shackles, Madnesses, Panic Buttons, and Discoveries. We did not take Mind Blast any more than required. Alright, how about the rares? What are my favorite rare cards on each character? On Ironclad, again, surprise, surprise, it was Offering. We also had tons of Impervious, Corruption, and Reaper, with our least favorite being Berserk. We only took 5 of those. Notably, we took 5 Berserks, and the runner-ups were all double digits. That's how much I didn't like Berserk. Our favorite silent rare was Adrenaline, with lots of Malaise, Alchemize, and Burst also showing up. Least picked was Unload at 4. Didn't take any of the rare attacks on Silent very much. 1,000 Cuts and Glass Knife. Although we did take Die 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 a decent amount. Echo Form for Defect being number 1. It beat out Seek by quite a bit, actually. We took a lot of reboots and core surges, too. I'm surprised at 28 reboot. Our least picked up rare was Multicast, which we did take quite a few of. 44 Scrolls on Watcher, also lots of Omnis and Vaults. Devotion being third place at 25 versus 40 for Omni and Vault is pretty telling. The top three of Scrawl, Omniscience, Vault really are head and shoulders above the other Watcher rares. Blasphemy being my least picked rare, that's kind of surprising actually. We took it less than Alpha, Establishment, or Master Reality. And not too surprised by top card Apotheosis for the colorlesses either. The rares we didn't take that much are kind of what we didn't get offered. The data for this was all gathered by the Run History Plus mod in Slay the Spire, which creates run files that we can look at in aggregate. And yeah, this does include data from my losses. So, next up, I've got a look at our pick rates before and after mastery. So, these numbers were arrived by looking at data from my 400 wins challenge in 2022 and comparing it to the data from essentially the second half of the mastery challenge. Essentially, the idea was to identify cards that I picked more before I had achieved the mastery condition in them in the challenge than I did afterwards. And I find that two kinds of cards stand out here in the data, which is interesting. It kind of shows a sampling bias too. And the two cards that I see appearing a lot on these lists are cards that I have started to take more because I think they're better than I used to think that they are. So cards I've adjusted my play around, and rare cards that I stopped picking because I was trying to master the other rare cards. And rare cards are usually offered in multiples. So it's kind of a mixed bag here. The cards that aren't rares, I think, show a predilection for a higher pick rate from me. So Second Win, we're going to talk more about Second Win in this presentation. I think that's a card that I'm genuinely picking more often than I used to. And the same is true of Juggernaut and Dark Embrace. I'm picking even more than I used to. Whereas Berserk, Demon Form, Corruption, and Limit Break, I don't think my pick rates have changed that much. It's just that after I mastered them, I was trying to get the other rares. Let's take a quick look at Silent, Defect, and the others. So again, anything that's not a rare is something that I am probably taking a bit more. So we see that I'm taking Terror and the physical attacks on Silent more. Terror, Blade Dance, Die, Masterful Stab, Backstab are all in the plus here. And then cards that I'm taking less show up as well, notably Bouncing Flask, Crippling Cloud, Envenom, Wraith Form. Wraith Form is something I've just kind of created an aversion to. I don't think it's actually gotten worse. It's just that I've started to identify situations it's unnecessary, and I've started to pick to avoid it unless I do feel that it is necessary. And if I'm taking more of Terror and the physical damage cards on Silent, it's also natural that I take less poison cards. So I think that's what we're seeing here is over time I'm losing preference for poison and gaining preference for Terror physical damage. What about Defect? On Defect, we see an increased predilection for Self-Repair and FTL and Storm. That's cool that I'm taking more Storms. And it makes sense that yes, Storm and Creative AI, both. Those are cards I'd say, in my opinion, has been going up. I'm taking less Cold Snaps, less Recycles, less Fission mistakenly labeled as uncommon here. Fusion is the uncommon. Fission is a rare. But the Seek, Bias Cog, and All for One, I think that's just because I was trying to master the other cards. But yeah, I'm not surprised to see Cold Snap drop off here. Just like I'm losing opinion of Poison on Silent, I'm kind of losing opinion of slower strategies on Defect, and Cold Snap as a cold orb source is oftentimes just a bit too slow. Maybe in the future we can, after another year of play, we can go back and compare again and see what's changed once more. All right, one more. Watcher here. Pick rates before and after. We're picking more Talk to the Hands, picking more Foresights. I think this is definitely a card I've improved my opinion of. Foresight and Wheel Kick is also doing a lot of work for me. Whereas there's a lot less of pretty much everything else. The block cards, the draw cards, the meditate. Again, I think with the rares, we just really didn't take very many rares. Not surprised to see Blasphemy here, because we only took 5 of them during the Mastery Challenge. You can see in a couple of data points that we just straight up stopped taking cards once they were mastered. We didn't take Master Reality or Judgment one time after achieving Mastery. Didn't I recently say that double energy yields a surplus of unused energy? Yes, yeah. Oftentimes, if you can't use all the energy that double energy makes, then what is it actually doing? What is it actually doing? And I think I skipped the colorless here. What do we got here? No, we do have data on the colorless. And the colorless really shows that. The colorless shows a lot of cards that I just stopped taking entirely once we achieved Mastery, like a lot of the rare colorless cards. Transmutation, Chrysalis, Mind Blast, Mayhem are all at 0% after. But we did end up taking more Apotheoses, more Flash of Steels, more Secret Weapons, more Bandage Up, more Panaceas. These are all cards I'm seeing a little bit more use for these days. Let's see. Next up, I think I have data on the first card that we picked. Did I keep those? Yes. So here, this chart is the average floor that we reached based on what our first card was. And I think this one's pretty cool. Highlighted, or bolded rather, are cards with really high average floors when they're taken as the first pick. So we see a very high performance for first pick on Ironclad of Uppercut. All the traditionally good cards, or especially cards that do a lot just on their own. Really high success rates for Uppercut, Blood for Blood, Shrug It Off, Battle Trance, Power Through. And then some hilarious ones that only have a single data point that got pretty far, like the first pick Burning Pack that worked out. It's kind of funny, but I think if it's got a 1 for the number of times, you don't really have enough information. So the higher up they are in bold, the more impactful. Is there anything that really looked like it sucked overall? Yeah. Clothesline reached an average floor of 27 if it was the first pick. And I think people who've watched the channel for a long time know that I'm not very happy with Clothesline usually. Yeah, Clash here, 57. Clash best card. We're going to see a couple of other data points in this presentation where there's one run that won and then it had a thing, but that's the only representation the thing gets. So it looks OP, even though it's not. Spoilers. On Silent, we have a similar chart here. Notably, Well-Laid Plans and Catalyst standing out. Apparently, I took Catalyst as a first card 5 times, and it worked out every time. What the heck was going on there? I'm not sure. Bouncing Flask is... Even though our Bouncing Flask pick rate worked out poorly, Bouncing Flask as a first card had a very high success rate. And likewise, Accuracy first pick, also very high success rate. So maybe the Catalyst and Accuracy first card are actually correct, and I just got to try it more. Always take the floor 1 combo cards. I like Infinite Blades at 1 as well. What is the lowest performer here? Bad performance from Bane, not too surprised by that. Bad performance from Deadly Poison overall, 39. Very bad performance from Piercing Whale. It's not a very good floor 1 card. Pretty bad performance from Fumes as well. Interesting. Let's look at Defect. Defect had a lot of success with Compile Driver, across 10 runs no less. Very good performance from Chill. Very good performance from Bias Cog as the first card. No surprise there. I think something you'll see in this data set actually is that if your first card was a rare card, you probably had a good time. Very low performance from first card Scrape. First card Rainbow only got to 13. Maybe not that rare card. First card Consume did not get very far. But I like that Auto Shields made it to all the way both times. Not a lot of runs with enough representation here. As for the Watcher, Wallop performed very well. Prostrate, Talk to the Hand, and Wheel Kick performed very well. Rushdown, of course, performed very well. Cards that perform poorly, Pressure Points seems to have the lowest average here. Although not as bad as that one run with Fear No Evil where I died on floor 10. That seems like an outlier of subverts. There's definitely going to be some runs in here that were really quick losses. Like I just kind of played through the middle of Act 1 and died because I was trying to get to the next run for a new boss swap or something. But I do believe this doesn't include the abandoned runs, at least. Okay, so one question that got asked earlier in the presentation is, how many tries did it take to master certain cards? And here we have a breakdown of what cards took the most attempts overall to actually successfully master. So attempts being... I'm not sure what counts as an attempt for Defect Strike. That just might be counting all of the runs where we died with 2 or more Defect Strikes. So I'm not sure I would include that one. But yeah, Dagger Spray took 9 attempts. And that's with us turning down Dagger Spray no times. It also took us a lot of tries to get Scrape, Reboot, Disarm of all things. I don't know why that one was hard. Flying Knee is not surprising. Fission. You don't want to have 2 Fissions. Shrug It Off didn't do all that well the first couple times. Some of these are definitely cards that I consider underperformers, particularly Dagger Spray. My opinion on Dagger Spray dropped a lot because of this performance. Scrape, Flying Knee are all pretty bad cards overall. Thunderclap, I'm not too surprised this was multiple tries. But I am surprised to see Blade Dance here. Why is Blade Dance here? See, did I include how many cards we turned down? Yes, these are the cards I most frequently decided I did not want a second copy of. Although we actually did not decline the second copy of an unmastered card very often. You can see the most was ever 3 here. But I repeatedly told the game, no, I don't want more Sucker Punches. No, I don't want more Self-Repairs. No, I don't want another Body Slam. And I think apparently all the uppercuts came from one run. There's just one run where I got offered 3 uppercuts that I didn't want. Overall, though, as you can see, I didn't repeatedly decline cards that I already had 1 copy of. I think our next slide is looking at a comparison. Yeah, what did we do during the Mastery Challenge with our money before and after the Mastery Challenge? So here in blue, we have data from the 400 wins challenge in 2022. Here in yellow, data from the Slay the Spire Mastery Challenge. And what this shows us is that, on average, during the Mastery Challenge, I purchased more cards. That shouldn't be a surprise. I removed fewer cards, because I was buying more cards. I purchased approximately the same number of potions, on average, almost 1 per run. Didn't realize I bought potions that often. And I bought slightly more relics during the Mastery Challenge, which mostly seems to be because of one run where I bought 15 relics. If looking at the data here. I bought 15 relics in one run? Wow. We were also buying more Dolly's Mirrors, that's true. Oh, that was the Nightmare Wish run? I forgot that was part of the Mastery Challenge. Yes, that makes sense. That was the Nightmare Wish run where we generated infinite money. All right, well, that's skewing the data. That's great. That's great. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's great. And now it's time for some of my favorite charts in this presentation. How well did certain relics perform during the Mastery Challenge? We set out to get a win with each and every relic, so that means every relic in the game does get representation on the stats here. And I've broken these down by character. So here's a little plot chart for you. I'm not quite. I gotta shrink my face down slightly. Let's shrink. Gotta look pretty. It's gotta look pretty. So, this is a plot of win rate versus how many times we had the relic. And I think the quick way to interpret this is the closer a relic is to the top right, the better it is overall. And the closer it is to the bottom left, the worse it is overall. Where Birdface and Cleric Face did not do well on Ironclad. We lost with the Cleric Face 2 times. It's a shame. And we never lost, apparently, with Busted Crown or a whole bunch of other things. The Dolly's Mirror, the Ice Cream, the Old Coin, the Shovel, the Guria. Can be hard to see all the relics as some are on top of each other here. Note the dashed line in the middle representing the win rate on Ironclad. Let's see. Can you spot Burning Blood here? No, I don't think the starter relics are on the... You're 50% on the left. The left? No, that's... I see Black Blood, yeah. I don't think the starter relic is on this one, but it's on the overall win rate chart. It would be the max number picked, of course, right? Because basically all the runs would have it. So speaking of in the top right, you see a lot of the relics that are very common and very good. The better common relics. So we see the sort of traditionally considered good common relics: Centennial Puzzle, Bag of Marbles, Anchor, Bronze Scales, Toy Ornithopter, Nunchaku, Bag of Prep. Runic Pyramid, not that high for the Clad, but pretty good. We'll see more of Runic Pyramid in the other classes here. Speaking of, let's look at Silent now. We'll see a different performance for each of the relics. Look at Kunai just standing out dramatically from the rest on Silent. Happy Flower also performing exceedingly well. I like all the relics there at 100%. 100% Cauldron win rate, 100% Hand Drill win rate. But yeah, I guess the saying Kunai GG is real for a reason, huh? That is an impressive showing from the Kunai. And you'll also see Runic Pyramid extremely high up, although we didn't take that many on Silent, apparently. Although not as high as Frozen Eye. Frozen Eye better than Pyramid is a pretty impressive statement also. Meanwhile, we got no Snecko Eye victories on Silent, apparently. That's kind of heartbreaking. Truly a shame. How about Defect? On Defect, you see a... Look at that, again, standout of Bag of Prep, just kind of on its own there. Also a very strong showing for the Data Disc and the Runic Pyramid. With some more funny 100%. 100% Busted Crown, 100% Mark of the Bloom win rate. Poor Cultist Face at the bottom. And Prismatic Shard. We never won a Prismatic Shard Defect run. It's a true shame. 100% Letter Opener on Defect is pretty cool. I really like the Letter Opener as a relic. It's neat to see it performing so well. But there were a few relics that did not do very well. Very notably, the Inserter is probably the relic that performed the poorest with the most picks. We tried a lot of Inserter runs, but few of them worked out. Yeah, good argument for calling Defect the upgrade character, seeing the Fusion Hammer here at 0 wins out of 5. Lastly, the Watcher. Watcher did have a higher base win rate. Look at that. Look at the difference between the blue line and the purple line here. Oof. So Watcher having a much higher base win rate. You see a much higher plot overall. The relics are just higher spaced on average. And some of the Watcher-specific relics worked out really well. I like the very high win rate observed for both Goldeneye and the Prismatic Shard. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Also, again, high performance for Bag of Prep, high performance for Runic Pyramid. Gremlin Horn and Incense Burner doing very well, too. Those are some of the better ones. There's definitely a lot to dig into. And then we can look at a sort of combined win rate chart for all of the 4 characters. Here. Here's our relic win rate, averaged across all the 4 characters. Hand Drill, very clearly the best relic in the game, but I think this is a good job of showing the relics that are good across multiple characters or just very strong in general. So you can really see when you combine all four, you can see Runic Pyramid standing head and shoulders above all of the other boss relics, really. You can see Bag of Preparation being the big standout for the common relics. We do have the starter relics plotted on this one, but I think it's actually misleading. Note you see the Burning Blood being a much higher win rate than the red line for Ironclad. Burning Blood being on the far right here, kind of on the dotted Watcher purple line. You might be inclined to think that that means that boss swap is a bad option on Ironclad, but what this means to me is that I was trying to find Curse Key, so I was boss swapping on Clad, and I didn't care if the one run if I didn't have a Curse Key. So we did a lot of boss swaps towards the end of the challenge that would have functionally boosted the win rate of Burning Blood by virtue of adding a lot of losses that didn't have Burning Blood. So I think there's some misleading stats here. Across the entire presentation, we're going to notice a trend of things that are real trends paired with things that are standing out because of a sampling bias. Like, for example, the change in card pick percentage was a mixture of those two. Interpreting stats is very hard. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So a few more thoughts here. This was a lot of the sort of analytical, objective data that we got from our Mastery Challenge. But what about some of the subjective data? How do I personally feel about the Mastery Challenge overall? And I would say that it's a pretty good success. Pretty big success. Across the challenge, I noticed my opinion of several cards kind of changing, in part because of how they were performing for me, or because I noticed my playstyle evolving. And I picked out some cards that I think my opinion of is dropping. For Ironclad, Sword Boomerang is falling further and further, in my opinion. The fact that it hits random targets is a serious downside in fights where you normally need it. And though it gives you good damage efficiency if you have strength, in exchange, the base damage is sufficiently low and the random targeting is sufficiently bad that I find myself avoiding that card more and more. Carnage, meanwhile, I don't say Carnage is a bad card necessarily, but I'm feeling less and less like Carnage is the star of the show on Ironclad. There are plenty of other powerful attacks that can serve a similar job, and so I'm not as inclined to jump at the opportunity to take a Carnage as I used to be. It works just fine, but I'm almost happier with an Uppercut, or an Immolate, or a Fiend Fire, or 2 Pommel Strikes. There's definitely a lot of better attack options, but it's perfectly fine. Does great damage for the energy. The fact that it exhausts is an upside in the later game, but can be a downside in the early game, causing uncomfortable situations against Lagavulin and Guardian in particular, where you have to play the Carnage so that you don't lose it, but you need to block on the turn, and you can't do both. Deadly Poison and Dagger Spray on Silent. We talked about Dagger Spray and why I don't think it's all that good. Ultimately, it's just not quite enough damage, as Silent does not have very many good ways to scale up the damage of Dagger Spray, and does have other better ways to do area damage, like Die, or all-out attack, or various powers. Deadly Poison, meanwhile, is declining in part because of an overall loss of opinion of poison. I'm starting to realize more and more opportunities where you can use terror and physical attacks like Blade Dance to deal tons of damage, and it's meaning that I'm starting to see poison as just a bit too slow sometimes. Is Poison Stab a better Deadly Poison? Sometimes. It offers more upfront damage, which makes it more useful in the short-term game, while still providing some utility later on. Deadly Poison doesn't scale kunai. Yeah, exactly. So why is Electrodynamics here on this page? I think Electrodynamics is a powerful card, letting you deal lots of damage to multi-enemy fights, which is something the defect can really struggle with. But it's also a card I've come to see as a liability in certain fights. Very crucially, it makes the Awakened one angry, which is not really any help at all. It's kind of a win and a loss in that fight. You need it for the cultists, but if you play it, the boss is angrier, so you end up in this situation where you either don't play your AoE card and then the minions kill you, or you do play your AoE card and then the boss kills you. And I also consider it a liability in the heart fight, where it's just 2 energy, channel 2 lightning, when you really need to be setting up something more impactful during the heart fight as defect. So it really ends up being just kind of dead weight in one of the most dangerous fights in the game for that character. It's pretty unacceptable for that reason. And again, not to say that Electro is a bad card or that you shouldn't pick Electro, it's just that I think of it as less good than I used to. And that's also the case for Battle Hymn and Wish, which are perfectly fine cards on Watcher, but have serious downsides to them. With Battle Hymn, it's the waiting period. You get 1 smite per turn, which can really solve the early game, but it comes as a double-edged sword. Later in the game, these smites can really clog your hands if you don't have enough energy generation and can provide a real problem. It's also yet another power, which can cause problems because it has no impact on the turn you play it. So it can contribute to sort of disaster draws. And oftentimes there's just better ways to get the damage you need quickly, like having a cut-through fade or 2. Wish is similarly a little difficult to justify. It's a big, heavy card, 3 energy plus a card draw. You sort of have to carry around a curse for a long time. And the payoff here is money that you can eventually use to buy either more card removes or more relics, would be the usual things I would consider that you're getting out of Wish. Although it does have the option to be scaling in important fights. You can play Wish for strength in a boss fight or for some plated armor in a key fight. It often fails to provide enough relative to what you're actually costing, such that I feel like you can just exclude the Wish, be a little bit more efficient with your cards, and have a similar performance. Yeah, definitely a win more card in a game that definitely discourages you from winning more a lot of the time. Spire is a win exactly enough game a lot of the time. Way too often just a 3 mana Inflame plus. But if you can use the gold effectively, it can do some really good things. So if you have Courier, for example, it can be worth picking up a Wish. If you have Membership Card, it can be worth picking up a Wish. But if you don't have those things, I wouldn't recommend it. It's just so hard to pay 3 energy and the card draw. Possibly repeatedly pay the card draw because you couldn't pay the 3 energy the first time. What cards, in my opinion of, go up on? Well, here's some cards. I thought more highly of pretty much all of these as a result of the Mastery Challenge. Some of these for different reasons than others. I'm also, again, not saying that all of these are necessarily good cards. I'm just saying that I think more highly of them now than I used to. Of the Ironclad commons, we're talking Heavy Blade and Iron Wave. Why? Well, Heavy Blade's going up for the exact reasons that Sword Boomerang is going down. Heavy Blade offers that efficient trading of strength into damage, but does it in the acceptable method of a 2-cost card. It's a bit more dense and compact, which is useful in the late game. You have to spend less draws on it. It can be your 1 attack card in a 30-card deck, and it can work really well. It does enough upfront damage. It's better than playing 2 strikes, and that's adequate in Act 1. But crucially, you get to choose where that damage is going, so you can use Heavy Blade to target a particular enemy, which is so important. Iron Wave is getting an increase because of its overall Act 1 performance. You get 5 block, 5 damage for 1 energy. That is pretty efficient. And it can scale from both strength and dexterity, which makes Iron Wave good with relics that Ironclad struggles to use well, like the Ornamental Fan, the Kunai, and the Shuriken. I'm starting to recognize Juggernaut as a really good way to deal damage in certain decks. It's certainly not a card I'd say I take often, but when I take it, I'm really starting to appreciate just how much damage it can do. You like Juggernaut in decks that are getting a small amount of block many, many times, and one of the perfect ways to do that is, well, actually the cards on either side of it are perfect here. Iron Wave is an attack that blocks, making Juggernaut excellent in a deck with one or more of those. But more relevantly, Second Wind lets you exhaust many cards. You get an individual stack of block for each one, and that will activate Juggernaut once for each time. Second Wind overall I've found to be an incredibly strong card. In the past, I used to think that there was some requirements before you pick up a Second Wind, but now I'm increasingly finding that you can just take the first Second Wind that you see, and it's almost always going to turn into a powerhouse as the run goes on. The more cards you have in your hand, the better Second Wind becomes, allowing you to block a massive amount for 1 energy, while also deleting non-attack cards from your hand, which can be a double benefit if you're getting rid of stinky defends or status cards or curses. And then you can double dip off that with effects like Feel No Pain, Juggernaut, and Dark Embrace. It's just a really, really powerful card overall, and one of Ironclad's big combo pieces. So more and more I'm thinking Second Wind and also its counterpart Power Through are just worth taking essentially at first opportunity. And as I, as a player, take more Dark Embraces, Second Wind also becomes better too. As for silent cards, I'm getting a higher and higher opinion these days of Backflip. I used to feel more strongly towards Acrobatics for its ability to draw more cards, but Backflip is providing a very efficient package deal in that you're getting card draw and block at the same time for your energy. So you get to see more cards and you're not wasting energy effectively. Big problem with Acrobatics is that if you, especially in Act 1, if you play Acrobatics, sure, you can look at 8 cards total, but you only have 2 energy left, and you can't do a whole lot with 2 energy if you spent one of the energies of your turn already just drawing and doing nothing else. So Backflip and any other card that both does something and draws a card, see Sweeping Beam also here for the same reason effectively. Yeah, it's just really nice to have commons that draw cards so that you can overall cycle through your deck more quickly, so you can get to key cards more quickly, stuff like that. Alchemize, meanwhile, this is a card I already thought was plenty good. I think it's even better than I thought, basically, because of how strong it is to be able to generate potions. Even if you have full potions, discarding your worst potion and making a new random potion is really good. And that's very strong. Being able to fish for things like of course, Ghost in a Jar is usually the big payoff from Alchemize. But even just having consistent value, being able to play 1 potion per combat, really, really strong. I don't think I considered Alchemize the best card in the game before the challenge. I would argue that it is now, though, certainly. As a general trend of card draw valuing increasing, that's what we're seeing with Heatsinks here. I value Heatsinks more because I value card draw more. Heatsinks is weird because it's one-time card draw, or at least, you know, as long as you have powers, you can keep drawing. And I've really come to appreciate Heatsinks plus Creative AI as a draw engine. You have to spend energy on the power, but you're getting scaling per turn and draw per turn from that combo, which is really cool. As for Watcher cards, Alpha was a card I hadn't seen a lot of use for before, but I feel like being forced to use it for the Mastery Challenge, we got a couple of really cool runs that involved Alpha, and I'm now recognizing it as, although not often as efficient as just using attacks on Watcher, it can be a specific solve to specific fights, such as Act 2 bosses, especially. If you've got a Watcher deck that's not able to beat Collector or Bronze Automaton, simply having an Alpha to put into play in those fights can be a game changer. This is not a card you have to or should expect to play its full sequence in every combat. You have to pay 6 total energy to get Omega down for 50 damage per turn. But in the big fights that have a lot of enemy hit points for you to deal with, just including 1 card can make such a big swing. And overall, I'd say I've gained appreciation for cards that do a lot with only 1 card. Creative AI on Defect and Demon form on Ironclad could arguably be on this page as well for a similar reason, in that they offer you a lot of scaling for only one card. Swivel, meanwhile, just kind of an efficient card. It saves you energy, and it blocks up front pretty well. As long as you have at least a couple of 2-cost attacks in your Watcher deck, it's well worth picking up. And I think I'm appreciating Swivel more now that I'm picking... I also saw an uptick in the stats on Wheel Kick and Ragnarok, and I think those are directly related. As I take more Wheel Kicks and more Ragnaroks, Swivel starts to look like a better and better block card. And nowadays, I feel like it's a really good option. It's often 8 block for effectively free, or sometimes 8 block and to generate energy. Lastly, Omniscience is a Watcher card that duplicates a card in the draw pile. Definitely a strong card. My opinion of it has gone up in that I think you can just take it at the start of a run, and it works out pretty well usually. You'd think of Omniscience as a really big, heavy card, kind of like Nightmare, but because you get to look at the entire draw pile to choose a target, and you double the card in question, it's so easy to get the full 4 energy value out of this card by doing something like duplicating a Wheel Kick, or duplicating a Power, or duplicating really anything that you need. As long as you have it in your hand and you can play it, you can probably solve whatever you're looking at. And then once you have that first Omniscience, more Omnisciences become better and better, because you can use Omnisciences to target other Omnisciences. So it's a self-synergizing card, and essentially I'm feeling like the entry point to this card is getting lower and lower. You can grab it as early as you see it, and it's very likely to work out. And the earlier you have it, the more likely you are to find more of them, right? So that just being able to pick it earlier makes it stronger. I think that's overall something I'm starting to hone in on, is the quote-unquote late game cards that you're allowed to take early. And we're seeing a lot of that with Dark Embrace on Ironclad especially. Okay, so those are the cards that my opinion changed on. What do I feel about the challenge overall? Like, what did we learn? What did we gain? Ultimately, I would say that I set out on this Slay the Spire Mastery Challenge as an attempt to keep Spire fun for myself. I wanted to switch up my decision-making on purpose. I wanted to switch up the criteria by which I was judging a run's success on purpose in order to create new experiences for myself that I considered fun. And by that metric, I would say this challenge was a huge success. There were a lot of runs that were totally unique that we had because of the constraints of the Mastery Challenge, and those were very fun, very memorable moments, with, of course, my favorite one being the Necronomicurse run. We got 2 Necronomicurses, and then after getting both of them, we found the relics that made them strong, and we were able to win from that position. That run would not have happened, would not have been possible without the Mastery Challenge essentially dictating that I duplicate the Necronomicurse. And that will forever sit in my memory as an awesome moment created from the Mastery Challenge. So, total success for fun. Did the Mastery Challenge make me a better player? Unclear, actually. I think I got some bad habits from the Mastery Challenge that I might have to shake off. And that's part of the new challenge we're setting with a 20 win streak for each character, is to sort of undo the bad habits that I did learn. But I also feel like I gained some useful skills, and something that I came up with as a concept as a result of the Mastery Challenge is what I call curse tolerance. Basically, how many useless cards can your deck contain and still function successfully through the Spire? On A20, every deck has at least a curse tolerance of 1. You have Ascender's Bane. That's a curse, a dead draw you're always going to have in every run, no matter what you do. And you have to win despite that. So you can tolerate that curse. But you can also tolerate more than that curse if you have certain factors. And I think the biggest thing that impacts your curse tolerance on a run is your base card draw per turn. How many different cards do you look at each turn? So that gives a larger curse tolerance to a run with Snekowai especially, but powers that draw each turn, like Brutality or Tools of the Trade or Machine Learning, can also improve your curse tolerance. because they make it less likely that you draw a hand that does nothing effectively if you don't draw any useful block or powers or damage or whatever on a turn, because you just got Strike, Defend, Ascender's Bane, Parasite. And any sort of card draw improves your curse tolerance, right? Per hand card draw, I think, is some of the strongest, but any kind of card draw works. So Pummel Strikes, Shrugs, Bag of Prep, all of that improves your ability to have curses. And that means that the more card draw I have, the more likely I am to take a curse for an upside of some kind. Which means I'm seeing more opportunities to take the curse from, for example, the Mausoleum in Act 2 to get a relic. But yeah, card draw being good in a deck builder, what a shocker. What a shocker. So that's about all I have here. I mean, this took almost, we're actually at over an hour here, so it's been plenty of stats and reflection and presentation. I do now want to open up questions to the audience. What do you want to know about the Mastery Challenge or Spire in general, to those of you who are here in the live chat? Ask me anything here, and I'll spend a few minutes answering questions. Did I do these data visualizations myself? No. Special thanks to Asuki, Ori Pixels, Grahama, and Faley for helping me put together the data and visualizations in this presentation. I did not do this myself, although I did some tweaking and editing. By and large, this presentation was put together by those four that you see listed there, many of who are here in chat right now. I see Asuki. Thank you so much for your work on this. Bailey, if you're here, a big thank you to you for the overall organization. Here's Ori. Thank you as well. But yeah, thank you. Thank you all for helping make this possible. It's so cool to be able to get additional sets of eyes. Philly has no internet, otherwise they'd be here. Oh no, what a bummer. It's a bummer, Philly. All right, let me catch some of the other questions from the audience here. Does the +1 draw of Sweeping Beam really put it that much ahead of a card like Dagger Spray? Yes. Yes, it does, actually. And that's part of what my opinion shifting on Sweeping Beam is all about, is that one card draw, yes, actually does make that big of an impact. And on Defect, it matters even more, because you're often trying to do something like Hologram or Rebound the Sweeping Beam, and that means you get to draw again, which is, yeah, it's pretty strong. It's pretty strong. Kyle Rotha says, I was surprised with the low Golden Idol win rate. Do I think the event is more punishing than it seems? Partially. I think Golden Idol is also giving you an immediate downside for a long-term upside, and usually you don't want that in Spire. You want the immediate upside. So if you're comparing runs that got Golden Idol, you know, think about what else you got if you didn't get the Golden Idol. You got the Living Wall. You get to remove Transformer Upgrade. That's way better than Golden Idol. You got to fight the 3 mushroom guys. That's probably better. You get a relic and a card reward and money. So what's next after the Mastery Challenge? That would be the Grand Mastery Challenge, aka get a 20 streak with each of the 4 characters. That's my goal for 2024 and beyond. Can I string together victories using the techniques I've learned and the feel I've gotten for each of the characters to just consistently perform? Now that I've spent almost a year playing kind of wacky style, I almost want to go back to just find a way to win. The Mastery Tracking mod was created by community member BE. Someone in chat asks who created the Mastery Tracking mod. BE made that unprompted. I did not ask for the creation of that mod. It was just offered to me as a, hey, I see you're doing a challenge. Would you like a visual aid? And then there was a very surprise credits cutscene at the end that was very cool, made to an awesome moment with the clumsy mastery at the very end. So a big shout out to BE for making the Mastery mod, and I see B's here right now, too. Do I like Slay the Spire? I sure do. Chat member Steve LNB asks, can I name one or more bad habits that I think I picked up during the Mastery Challenge? I think I picked up a bad habit of going to too many event nodes, not getting enough card rewards, not spending enough fights. I think the number of card rewards you look at during a run is a really important indicator for a run's success. The more cards you can find, the more synergies you can build, the more consistently you can get offered certain cards. So I think I'll have to take fewer events as we go into trying to get a higher win rate. I think I also probably started playing too aggressively towards the end, taking too many elites too early, because I was trying to get a strong run to start. Deadly Smile in chat says, seeing how valuable Bag of Preparation is, do I think boss swapping on Silent is worse as a result? Yes. I have not had a lot of success with Silent boss swap for the most part. Subjectively, I find it frustrating to not have those two cards on turn 1, as I feel like I'm getting hosed on the initial draw pretty often. It can work out well for Silent. Silent's also an energy-hungry character, so she really does like having an extra boss relic. But I really don't like giving up that 2-draw. All of the run data that was used for this, you can see all my run histories on the website, Baalorlord.tv. I don't know if that has all of the information you'd need for the graphs and such, though. Oh yeah, why did I put Clumsy in the opinion down? I meant to talk about this more. This card, because this card is too hard to heckin' get, man. We spent almost 2 months looking for just Clumsy, and it started to drag on towards the end. So I actually mentioned the Mastery Challenge being a huge success in terms of fun. That's true for most of it, but I think the very tail end, with particularly Clumsy, and maybe a couple of other cards like Violence, they started to wear a little bit thin, just trying to essentially grind seeds to find one that was going to let me get the card I needed. So it kind of fell apart at the end there, and Clumsy was way too hard to track down. Stinky Clumsy. But yeah, overall, really, really fun time. Sleepy Balrog in chat asking about Minimalist. I do have a video guide on that one. I do think that the Minimalist achievement is one of the hardest ones to get in Slay the Spire, definitely. Running with 5 cards is very tough. Oisola says, what are my thoughts on the RNG fix mod? I did not use it during the Mastery Challenge. I am using RNG fix now. RNG fix removes what's called correlated randomness from the game. Basically, RNG outcomes that happen together in patterns in a way that allows the player to predict random values that are coming up, such as the contents of an event room. This is information the player is fundamentally not supposed to have access to, is my opinion, from the game design perspective. These things should be truly random, like what's in a question mark room. You shouldn't be able to know that ahead of time. And I like that the RNG fix mod effectively fixes that. It removes your ability to cheat information out of the game by using meta-knowledge. And that meta-knowledge is what I consider a cognitive hazard. Once you're aware of how these things show in patterns, you can't unlearn it, and you can't ignore the impact on your run. Did this crazy MF actually do it? We did. We did. The single most surprising fact or statistic I found during the retrospective. I was really surprised, actually, that Blasphemy was our least picked Watcher card. Consider that a pretty good card. 1059 says, how did I compensate for having 2 copies of a garbage card in the deck and turn those runs into wins? It's partially that concept I came up with called curse tolerance, essentially by having a lot of cards total, by having a lot of card draw, and by having really powerful cards, such that, let's say you draw 7 cards on your turn, you play the 3 best cards. As long as those 3 cards are good enough, that'll let you win, no matter how bad the bad cards are. We did not have a slide for cards that got mastered multiple times. I did not end up compiling that one. Seems like an oversight, but there was so much to talk about. I did cut a number of slides that either had information that wasn't quite presented cleanly enough, or I felt like was going to overstay its welcome here. I didn't want this video to get too long. How would I balance the game having finished the challenge? I feel like the game is very, very well balanced overall. There's maybe some relics I would tweak. For example, I think you could make Pocket Watch draw one fewer relic. But overall, I think the game is exceptionally well balanced. There's not too much I would tweak. Can we do it again with 3 cards? I think that would take a very long time. Danny Boy says, do you feel like having bad cards causes you to lose health continuously? Or is it 1 or 2 detrimental brick draws that kill a run? You can think of it as like a bell curve. Having bad cards in the deck has a low chance to do nothing to you, a low chance to just instantly kill you, and a very good chance to consistently chip away health. So it really does depend on the exact draw orders that you get, exactly when those cards show up. If you bottom draw the curse every time, it might not have really any impact. But if it shows up on turn 1 every fight, it could really, really, really hurt you. So a curse of the bell curve, I suppose. What makes Spire so replayable, fundamentally? Simple mechanics, executed cleanly, that have incredibly complicated interactions and create exceedingly large, essentially like interaction matrices. You've got about 200 relics in the game, but you get a different random selection of 15 to 20 of those each run, resulting in millions and millions of different relic combinations that you can have, resulting in millions and millions of different contexts to make card decisions from. That's one of the many things that makes Spire very replayable. Will this be on the exam? Yes. Would I ever do a mastery for the Downfall mod? I mean, there's so many cards in the Downfall mod that even if I made it just 1 copy of the card, I think it would be a onerous task. So I don't think I would ever do mastery of Downfall. Although I could see somebody else doing that as a fun challenge for themselves. Will I ever take another Heel Hook? Maybe. Will I ever take another Wild Strike? No. Although that's not quite true. We almost took Wild Strike on a stream recently. After first picking Fire Breathing. How do I evaluate taking short-term risks for long-term power versus playing it safe? It's often a gut decision. That one comes with experience for me. I don't really have a metric or calculation I do. I think there are some cards. Oddity asks for the bad cards. Was getting them too early a positive or a negative for your ability to win with them? I think a negative, and I think that's what we saw happen with Dagger Spray a lot of the time. I picked up 2 Dagger Sprays really early when I didn't need 2 Dagger Sprays, and we didn't get very far as a result. If I added a second card with the keyword Mark, what would it do? It would add Mark to all enemies for 2 energy. Be like the shockwave of Mark. Mark Wave. My most hated enemy in the game is Awakened One. The fight takes too damn long. I did not have a slide on relics that changed, in my opinion. I don't feel like my opinion on relics changed too much. And I think that's because you're not often making a choice of which relic to take beyond boss relics. You just get them or you don't get them. All right, that's a good batch of questions. I think I'll wrap it up here, actually. This has been a exceptionally long video as it is. So I want to say a big thank you for watching this breakdown of our Mastery Challenge, the year of 2023, and all this fire content that we made. It was tremendously fun to do this challenge, and I think we found some pretty cool things along the way. Again, that Necronomicon run will stand out forever as an amazing piece of content that wouldn't have been possible without this, and that's just one of many runs that happened.